Hey, good morning, students. Last time we have started the first module of the course, signal analysis, and sensors. And today we are going to start the next topic, that is signal analysis in two domains, that is time domain and frequency domain. And before starting to the next topic, let me recap the last lecture that we have studied. And we have started with the signal, and we have studied the definition of the signal. And signal is nothing but it's a physical quantity or a function which contains an information which are expressed mathematically as a function of independent variable, and that signal could be a visual or could be a physical motion or an electrical signal as well. And to make one more definition of the signal, we have considered the variables. The variables are of two types, dependent variable and independent variables. And if you plot a graph of independent variables against a dependent variable, let us say time is the independent variable and f of t is a function which is a dependent variable, and if you plot a graph in this way, then this signal gives you some information, and that information we have interpreted mathematically. That mathematical function f of t gives you a signal equals to 1 in a particular time when t is greater than or equals to -4 and less than or equals to 6, and that signal or a function f of t is equals to a 0 in otherwise time. Fine. So from this graphical representation we have made the definition of a signal, and a signal is basically a time varying function, and therefore based on this we have made the definition: signal is any time varying function like current and voltage and electric field and magnetic field which carries an important information. Fine. And after that we have studied the types of signals, and there are two kinds of signals. One is called as analog signal and digital signals, which you already studied in some earlier standards. And so I can say analog signal is a signal which are time varying and continuous, and the best example of the analog signal is the sine wave and cos wave. You can see here on the screen, this is a sine wave, and this sine wave varies with time, having its amplitude A, whereas the digital signal is a signal which are discrete, and these signals does not vary with time, and therefore those are not continuous. Rather, these signals are exist in the form of digital logics, that is 1 and 0. These things we have studied already in the last video. Now let us focus on the classification of the signals. And signals is, to sense the signal we need a sensing element or a device. This sensing element or a device is called as a transducer, and this sensing element or device could be your thermometer to sense the temperature, or it could be a strain gauge to measure the strain. So we can simply put, signal is an information provider, and therefore I can say, if you give a signal to your transducer sense, it is a sensing element or a device which senses a signal and passes that electrical signal to an analysis unit. Or analysis unit, oscilloscope is an analysis unit, and I am sure we have studied this oscilloscope in the earlier standards. This we have studied last time, and I think we have studied the definitions of transducers and sensors also. So transducer is a device which converts one form of energy into another form of energy. And the best example of a transducers are the thermocouple and thermistor. Sensor is a device which measures the physical quantity like temperature, sound, gas, etc., and converts them into a readable form. And its example we have also studied last time, LDR, that is light dependent registers. One more type of a signals that we have studied is based on the motion of the signal, and the two types of the signals are dynamic signal and static signal. Now you can see the graphs that I have plotted. The first graph in the dynamic signal shows a variation with respect to a time, and that's not constant actually. The variation is very wild. Those variations are called as the dynamic signals. Whereas in static signal, the signal is a constant with respect to a time. This kind of signal is called as a static signals. We have also studied two more types of signals based on the signal existence at all time t, or it exists at a discrete time t. Now you can see the graph plotted for stationary signal. Now the voltage varies with respect to time, but the average value of the voltage which varies with respect to time is almost same in the block of time. Such a signal is called as a stationary signal, and if the speed is not constant in a time, then such signals are called as non-stationary signals. And the example of stationary signals are also we have studied last time. There are two types of stationary signals. Those two types are called as periodic signal and random signals, of course. The two examples that we discussed last time are the vibration of the needle of the sewing machine, and if you observe the vibrations of the needle of the sewing machine, then you will come to know those vibrations of the needle of the sewing machine are periodic because their speed is a constant and that needle repeats its motion after equal interval of time. So this needle of a sewing machine is the best example of a periodic stationary signal. The second example also we have discussed last time, that is raindrop falling on the roof, is a random stationary signal. And an example of non-stationary signal, you can consider a moving vehicle whose speed is not constant. So these are the various topics that we have discussed last time in the last lecture. Now let's go for the next topic, that is the signal analysis in two different domains, time domain and frequency domain. Now what do you mean by time domain and frequency domain? Let us try to understand one by one. Now time domain is a domain wherein you can plot a graph of amplitude with respect to a time. That is called as a time domain signal analysis. Now here you can see the graph plotted for a sine wave, and the graph plotted is time against amplitude or amplitude versus time. So let us consider the time period of this sine wave signal is t is equals to 0.04 millisecond, and therefore you can easily calculate the frequency of this signal, and its frequency is equals to a reciprocal of the time period, and therefore if you calculate its frequency by putting the value of the time period t equals to 0.04 millisecond, you will get f equals to 1 upon t equals to 1 upon 0.04 millisecond, and that will give you 24 kilohertz frequency. Now why purposefully I have calculated here frequency is because I need the same example to explain the frequency domain signal analysis, which is plotted here. Let me go ahead and then we'll come back again to explain the frequency domain analysis. Now one more example, the same kind of example we are going to discuss again. This is again a sine wave plotted for time against amplitude, but the time period is changed now. Now the time period t is equals to 0.02 millisecond. In earlier case, the time period was 0.04 millisecond. Now the time period is almost half. If you decrease the time period to half of it, then its frequency will get doubled. And if you do these calculations, then you will get the frequency equals to 50 kilohertz. Earlier was 25 kilohertz. And if you merge above two signals, that is a signal for time period equals to 0.2 millisecond and for time period equals to 0.04 millisecond, then we will get a complex signal. And thus, because of this complex signal, it's very difficult to identify the stability of the signal, which increases the complexity of a signal, isn't it? And therefore, the complex signal you can see here, there are four different signals that I have considered in the time domain analysis. If you consider y is equal to sine x, y is equal to sine of 2x, y is equal to sine of 3x, y is equal to sine of half x, these are the four different signals. Even though you consider the two signals, still the signal analysis in time domain becomes a very complex, because all the signals are going to add, the time periods are different, phases will changes, and therefore the signal analysis in time domain becomes very difficult. Now let us try to understand the frequency domain analysis, signal analysis in frequency domain. Now see, in case of a signal analysis in frequency domain, it's a plot of frequency against amplitude, and you are analyzing the signal in frequency domain, and therefore in case of a frequency domain you will get only single standing line as a result. We have calculated in time domain analysis for time period t equals to 0.04 millisecond and time period t equals to 0.02 millisecond. The frequency came out was 25 kilohertz and 50 kilohertz. And if you see the graph for frequency domain signal analysis, then you can see the first two sticks for 0.25, that means 25 kilohertz, and 0.50, that means 50 kilohertz. You will get only a single sticks for a whole wave, and therefore in frequency domain analysis the signal can be easily identified and hence becomes a less complex. The difference between the two sticks on the frequency domain analysis or on the graph of frequency and amplitude, the difference between the two sticks or bar is the bandwidth, and hence in frequency domain we'll get a spectrum, and the identification of the stability is possible in frequency domain analysis. Let us take an example how the identification of the stability becomes a simple in frequency domain analysis. Now let us consider Hs is a transfer function of the system, and Hs is equal to s plus 1 divided by s plus 2 into s plus 3. This will give you three different poles for the values of s equals to -1, -2 and -3. These poles can be calculated by equating all the three brackets s plus 1 equals to 0, s plus 2 equals to 0 and s plus 3 equals to 0. Then you will get s is equals to minus 1, s is equals to minus 3, s is equals to minus 3. Thus, these poles are calculated for this particular transfer function. If these poles are plotted on imaginary axis and real axis, then you will find that these poles lies on the left half of the plane. That means on the left side of the y-axis. And if these poles lies on the left half of the plane, then it means that the system is a stable system. Only the drawback of a frequency domain analysis is that the phase calculation of the signal is not simple and it's impossible. Therefore, you can say this is an advantage for frequency domain analysis. Thus, this time domain analysis and frequency domain analysis ends here. Hope you have understood the concept of signal analysis in two different domains, that is time domain and frequency domain. Now let's move for the next topic, and the next topic is signal to noise ratio. And you might be aware this simple definition of a noise, and noise is a unwanted signal or it is an unwanted disturbance created in the signal. And the signal to noise ratio is defined as it's a ratio of average signal power to the average noise power, and it is simply represented by SNR, signal to noise ratio. And hence I can put it simply, signal to noise ratio is a ratio of PS to PN, where PS is a signal power and PN is the noise power. Therefore, I can say signal to noise ratio is also defined as a ratio of signal power to the noise power. Now, in decibel, signal to noise ratio is written as 10 log of signal power divided by noise power. And in terms of voltage, I can write, just putting the value power is equals to a multiplication of current and voltage. I can say PS, signal power, is equals to IV is equals to Vn square by R. Similarly, for noise power, I can say Pn is equals to Pn square by R. So signal to noise ratio in terms of voltage, I can write in decibel, signal to noise ratio suffix to the decibel is equals to 10 log of Vs square by 2 divided by Vn square by R is equals to 10 log of Vs by Vn bracket square, and that raised to power 2 will come out and will be multiplied by 10, that will give you 20 log of Vs by Vn. That is the signal to noise ratio in terms of voltage. Thus, the high value of signal to noise ratio is good for a transmitter and a receiver. Now let's move for the next topic, and the next topic is a error. What is meant by errors? You have been studying these errors since from the 11th standards, and these errors you have studied in 11th standard. This error is defined as, it is nothing but the difference between the measured value and the observed value. This measured value is also called as actual value or experimental value, and the observed value is also called as a standard value or a true value. Therefore, I can say error is defined as, it is the difference between measured value or actual value or experimental value, and standard value or true value or the observed value. There are different kinds of errors, and basically there are three type of errors. The first type of error is an experimental error. This experimental error is also called as a gross error or personal error. The second kind of error is a systematic error, and the third kind of error is a random error. Now let us try to understand what is experimental error or gross error or a personal error. This personal error, by the name itself you can easily understand, these kind of errors are added due to the human's mistake or the person's mistake who is carrying out the experiment. And the simple example of the experimental error or a personal error is a parallax error. What is a parallax error? Parallax error is an error introduced if an observer is taking a reading from a glass tube. Suppose a glass tube, the water is poured in the glass tube, and observer may read a reading at a upper meniscus or a lower meniscus, but because of observing at upper meniscus and lower meniscus simultaneously, observer may read a wrong reading, and those written wrong readings are only because of the person's mistakes, and that mistake is called as a personal error or experimental error or a gross error. One more reason of introducing this personal error is because of an operator who is recording a pressure gauge. Suppose a particular person is operating a machine and he is recording the various values of the pressure using the pressure gauge. Suppose the value recorded is 1.01 Newton per meter square, but by mistake that person or an observer is writing that reading as a 1.10 Newton per meter square, and this error is because of that person, not because of an instrument. Instrument gives you the correct reading, but because of the person's casualness, the mistake is increased. This kind of error is called as a personal error. This kind of errors can be reduced by taking careful reading and recording the data. That means avoiding the error is possible, and that can be done by doing careful reading and recording of the data. Now let us try to understand the second kind of error is a systematic error, and these systematic errors are occurred due to fault in measuring device or in equipment, and there are various kind of systematic errors. Let us try to understand these kind of systematic errors. The first kind of systematic error is a zero error, and this kind of error you have been studying since from the 11th standard, and I'm sure you have used and calculated the zero errors while doing the experiments in the lab in the 11th and 12th standard in the undergraduations also. Zero errors are of two types: positive zero error and negative zero error, and I think you can easily understand what is meant by positive zero error and negative zero error. Let's go for the next kind of error. Next type of error is the instrumental error. These instrumental errors occurs due to a wrong construction in the measuring instrument. While manufacturing the instrument, if the error is introduced in the instrument, that kind of error are called as instrumental error, or these kind of errors can be introduced by the misuse of the instrument and the loading effect. The third kind of error, next type of systematic error, is the environmental error, and this environmental errors occurs due to change in external conditions of an instrument like temperature, pressure, humidity, electric field and magnetic field, etc. Due to these external conditions, the errors occurs are called as environmental error. And the fourth type of systematic error is a observational error. These observational errors occurs due to wrong observations or readings noted by observer from the instrument. The third type of a error is a random error, and this kind of errors are caused by sudden change in experimental conditions and noise or the tiredness of the person who is working. The example of the random error is unexpected changes in the temperature and the fluctuations in the voltage. This kind of errors can be avoided, or the errors can be reduced by taking an average of all the readings or the observations. So I think you have understood the three different kinds of errors. Let me revise the three different kinds of errors. First is experimental error, which is also called as a gross error and personal error. Second is a systematic error, and there are four different types of systematic error: zero error, instrumental error, environmental error, and observational error. And the third type of error is a random error. Fine. There are three more types of errors called as absolute error, relative error, and percentage error. These three types are very simple. And absolute error, let us indicate this absolute error by letter delta A, and this is equals to a mod of measured value minus actual value. So let us consider here the measured value is a 70.5 meter and the actual value is equals to 70 meter, and if you work out this calculation you will get 70.5 meter minus 70 meter will be 0.5 meter. Though in some calculations you will get the absolute error as a negative value, but you should write the absolute error as a positive because you are taking the mod. Please be careful about the absolute error. These are very important errors. Now relative error. Relative error is defined as it is a ratio of absolute error to the actual value. Now absolute error is denoted by letter delta A, and let us indicate the actual value by letter A. So this will give you 0.5 divided by 70, which will give you 0.007143. If you do the calculations you will get this value. And the third type of error is a percentage error, and this percentage error is equals to, it is a relative error into 100, that will give you a percentage error, and hence I can write in formula percentage error is equals to delta A by A into 100. If you multiply to the relative error, that relative error will give you 0.00743 into 100 will give you the percentage error, and therefore percentage error is equals to 0.7143. So this is all about errors, and the next topic is a sensor, but I think we'll stop here and next time we'll go for the sensor. Thank you.